So we've discussed generating more relevant code based on your specific project, but I want to learn more about the individual versus enterprise developer workflow. So, Tsavo, maybe you could talk to me about the issues among both individuals and enterprises in terms of switching careers, roles, teams, or maybe just changing up your solo project, and how AI might be able to augment these difficult transitions.
Yeah, I'll just say this. The way we think about developers at large, whether you're working in an enterprise or an individual workflow, is that you're still going to have that same story of three major pillars. You're in the browser, you're going to be ending your day probably around 50 tabs open. You're in your IDE, you've got a bunch of projects, bunch of source code, maybe you're doing code reviews, whatever. That's pillar number 2. And then pillar number 3 is in a collaborative space. And the development community is inherently just like, together because of the advent of open source in the past decade, right? So whether you're collaborating in an enterprise environment or you're on GitHub or you're on Discord, interacting with the community and an open source publisher, you're still getting that collaboration. But what I'll say is, we wanted to make Pieces a plus for individual developers and say, hey, look, it's going to help you hour by hour, day by day, be more productive. And then once you start to layer that into a team setting, you get that compounding effect of productivity. And you effectively still get your own personal Pieces experience for the task that you're doing and whatever else, but you begin to aggregate this kind of like decentralized team, shared knowledge base, if you will. And so that's really what we're excited about leveraging. And our cloud features will be able to interact with Brian's Pieces Drive, Mark's Pieces Drive, my Pieces Drive, whatever is shared, making experiences around sharing and generating and figuring out who to talk to really A+. I'll say this too. We are obviously thinking about certain enterprise features like, your classic like comments and, permission-based sharing, email sharing, all that stuff, real-time sync. But we also think about like, how can Pieces bring the people who you need to connect with and the people you're working with closer together? And so just as we think in enterprise, hey, I'm an individual developer, can Pieces understand who I need to connect with on this code? We also say, can Pieces understand who, in terms of blog authors or YouTube publishers or things like that, is publishing content, and you want to basically say, hey, at Pieces Copilot, who can I read about, this database infrastructure? And it'll bring those authors in, just as you can say, hey, who should I talk to on my team to, do some pair programming about this Dart code? So I think like the who for us is individuals will always have to connect with either, open source, blog authors, whatever it is, or their own teammates. And I think we're just going to be really focused on making A+ experiences that start at the individual and then naturally compound to the team level. But if you don't get the individual right, it'll never work at the team level.
Yeah. I completely agree with Tsavo there as well. Like from the individual point of view, when you're coding by yourself, you're in the browser, you're in your IDE, you're in your testing environment, and so on. So switching between all those can be a bit of chaos. And I think here at Pieces, we can really help kind of ease some of the chaos and keep it right in flow, as well as on the enterprise level. Also, we also have context switching from your Google Chat or your Slack or your Microsoft Teams and so on, switching between teams, copying and pasting code, putting it into your IDE, going back to your testing environment and so on can be absolutely maddening. But staying in flow, staying in those applications as long as possible, we know as developers can enable us to be way, way, way more productive. And I think that's a very interesting problem there that we strive to solve here at Pieces.